Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. Let's go on our topic. To unify the cognitive view of humans and animals regarding various things and changes, we collectively refer to this type of cognitive view as meaning view. Undoubtedly, the word meaning view we mentioned is a category within the meaning view. Besides humans, animals do not have a systematic language. Therefore, their numerous meaning G cannot form many G connections with numerous sound G, let alone with the character shape G of written words. However, through the training of animal trainers, circus animals can form such G connections, which also demonstrates the importance of the simultaneous activation effect in forming G connections. In the face of the same simultaneous activation effect, humans learn faster than animals, and there are also differences in learning speed among different animals. This shows the influence of the organic nature determined by genes on the formation of G connections. Although animals do not have a systematic language G, they can form numerous meaning G through various survival experiences. This meaning G will form G connections with the corresponding pleasure or discomfort sub-G. The G waves, after their activation, participate in the combination of characteristic internal structures, thus guiding the animal's behaviors. Therefore, we marvel at the acuteness, intelligence, and human-like nature of animals. Sometimes we humans can also live mindlessly like animals. That is, when engaging in certain behaviors, we can almost completely avoid over activating the corresponding language G. For example, when you get up to urinate in the middle of the night, wash your face, and brush your teeth in the morning, or instinctively chase a football on the field, you may not think at all about how to unbuckle your belt, how to wash, brush, or tease. In other words, the verbal descriptions of the corresponding behaviors do not come to mind, but your behaviors occur smoothly. Similarly, it seems that the corresponding pleasure or discomfort subdue is not activated before such behaviors, because it seems that your brain does not consider the pros and cons after the behavior is implemented. Is this really the case? This question is worth exploring. There are also examples like this. We really want to do something but ultimately choose not to. For example, a man may not strike up a conversation with a beautiful woman he meets on the subway. We really don't want to do something but end up doing it anyway. For example, in the morning, we are very reluctant to go to school or work but still go. Whether we want to or not, it necessarily activates the corresponding pleasure or discomfort sub-G and also combines the corresponding behavioral G waves. But why aren't these behaviors carried out? Right? They didn't win in the vector effect. Since they didn't win, then where are the G waves in the opposite direction? It seems that they don't appear much in the G-wave display area. In fact, once a behavioral G-wave is combined, it will inevitably be projected, thus activating multiple related meaning G. These meaning G are formed through survival cognitive experiences and often have G connections with the pleasure or discomfort sub-G. So, when the initial behavioral G wave containing a pleasure expectation is projected, it may indirectly activate more pleasure or discomfort sub-G, thus forming G waves that either positively synergize with or negatively antagonize the original behavioral G wave. These newly formed G waves will synergize or compete with the original G wave in the vector effect. However, these newly formed G waves may not appear in the G wave display area, which may be related to the distribution of the G pathways. That is to say, the occurrence or non-occurrence of the corresponding behavior is the result of a trade-off of pros and cons. Let's look back at urination, washing, brushing, or chasing a ball. In fact, the G that implements these behaviors is connected to the pleasure sub-G, whether directly or indirectly, and whether it exists innately or is acquired later. However, when these G are activated, the formed pleasure sub-G waves may not appear in the G wave display area. Similarly, these pleasure G waves will also be projected by the G connections outside the G wave display area, activating other G groups to generate multiple G waves that participate in the vector effect. The multiple G waves generated later can also not appear in the G wave display area. That is to say, sometimes humans or animals may act without being aware of why they do so. They just do it. Such mindless behaviors may be more common in animals. In addition to these mindless behaviors and behaviors actively participated in by consciousness, there are some small random movements of humans and animals, such as occasionally shaking a leg, blinking an eye, or moving a finger. These behaviors can be accompanied by pleasure or discomfort G waves, or they can simply be movements caused by the activation of the corresponding motor instinctive sub-G. Moreover, stress responses and movements supported by the automatic, autonomic, autonomic nervous system, such as the knee jerk reflex or the heartbeat, are the result of the instinctive G formed through biological evolution. By observing the behaviors and emotions of a psychiatric patient, we can infer the existence or strength of the corresponding G in their brain. The emergence of emotions indicates that the G waves appear in the G wave display area, and the appearance of behaviors indicates that the G waves of certain G have run out. Through the classification of several combinations of whether behaviors and emotion occur, we can generally understand the G activation state in their brain at that time. This method can be applied not only to psychiatric patients but also to children, ordinary adults, or criminals. However, remember that if the subject may have received professional psychological training or read this book, then elements of game playing will inevitably need to be added to the inference. And a master who is proficient in both psychology game playing can almost deceive everyone. Okay, that's all the content today. How do you think of it? See you next time. Bye bye.